Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we're going to discuss a new subtopic, which is variables and hypotheses. Right. So the natural nature of variables. There are two types of variables in research. First is a qualitative variables, and second one is quantitative variables. For qualitative variables, we have a dichotomous type of variables, means we have only two levels in each variables. Polychotomous means we have is a categorical variable. We have more than two levels. For a quantitative variables, we have two types of quantitative variables. Whether it's a discrete quantitative variables, another one is continuous quantitative variables. For a discrete quantitative variable, it only takes for a whole number. For a continuous quantitative variables, it takes a variety of number. Means it's a number. It can take any number in a range of its nature. Right. For hypothesis, okay, before we go to hypothesis, let me explain for variables. Under qualitative variable, by default, we have a qualitative means that something that we cannot measure, but we can put some value into a qualitative. Means that, for example, such as a color, we have yellow color, red color, green color, and blue color, and so on, many more. But we cannot measure the color, but we can identify that is the blue color, that is a green color. So that is a qualitative, means that something that we cannot measure, but we can identify that variable. Under qualitative variable, we have two types of scales measured under qualitative variable. First is a nominal scales. Another one is ordinal scales. Both are categorical variable or qualitative variable. But the difference between nominal and ordinal scale means that ordinal is a categorical variable where each level are not in order. Means that we can say that male and female are not in order. Another one is, let's say, for example, we have ethnicity, Malay, Chinese, Indian, and Siamese. So they are not in order. So, but we know that there is a Malay, but we cannot measure the Malayness in the human species. So that is a qualitative variable, which is nominal scales. For ordinal scale means that it's a categorical variable, but it should be in order. For example, we have president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. It should be in order. So it's a categorical variable, but it's in order, right? For a quantitative variable, there are two types of scales. First is interval scales. Another one is ratio scale. For interval scale, it's something that we can measure, but the value of means that in interval scale it has a true zero. It does not have a true zero. Sorry. As I said, interval scale have no true zero. The zero value is not a true zero. Means that, for example, let's bring up the value of temperature. Temperature, we know that there are two types of measurement for temperature. First is Celsius, and another one is Fahrenheit. So we can say that when the Celsius we have 100 Celsius, means that the temperature is very hot right now. But if we have 0 Celsius, it doesn't mean that there are no temperature at our space. So it means that we are at a very cool situation. So the zero value for temperature is not a true zero. It means something else. So it is a interval scales. For ratios measurement, right? Ratio scale. The zero value is a true zero. Means that if you have zero money in your pocket, means you have no value and no money in your pocket. Alright, let's move to the next topic, which is hypothesis. So hypothesis is a guide of research, right? So it has a tentative explanation to research phenomena as formulated as a proposition or question. So although most type of research require a hypothesis, in exploratory research there are no hypotheses required since this is not much information available. But because we are doing exploratory research, we are not knowing much information about the criteria. We try to explore more on that situation or problem. So hypotheses are not always correct. They could be incorrect, even not null. Right. Let's look at the definition of hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative statement saying what you expect to find in your research. It is not just a random guess, but a prediction based on existing knowledge. So this is the definition of hypothesis. So there are 6 ways in formulating hypothesis. First step is you need to ask a question. The question that you ask should be very focused, specific, and researchable. So you need to ask a very good question. So let's look at the example one by one, right? So choosing our topic. Let's say we want to formulate a research hypothesis on Apple. First, we need to ask a question. So what are the health benefit of eating apple a day? So this is a specific, researchable, and focused question. Step number 2, do a preliminary research. So initial question should base on what is known about topic. Is already known about topic. This is the highlighted point. Look for the theories and the previous study to help to form educated assumption. Right. For example, apple are nutritious in and a lot of high in vitamin C that can boost your immune system. So these are the health benefit that might contribute to fewer doctor visits. So this is the your preliminary research, right? So then step number 3, you need to formulate the hypothesis. Means that you need to write initial answer to the question that in a clear and concise sentence. So based on the question you already asked in the first step, right? You need to write initial answer for the question in a clear and concise sentence. So let's look at how we formulate a research hypothesis. We need to write a concise and understandable manner. So daily apple consumption leads to a fewer doctor visit, right? So this is the answer of the eating apple, right? So step number 4, we need to refine our hypothesis. Make sure the hypothesis is specific and testable. It should contain relevant variables, predicted outcome of the experiment or analysis, and the specific group being studied. So based on our formulated hypothesis, so we know that daily apple consumption lead to the fewer doctor visit. So apple consumption is our variables, and fewer doctor visit also are variables, right? So the predicted outcome is the fewer visit, right? The independent variable should be the apple consumption, and dependent variable should be the number of doctor visit, right? So we need to also know what is our specific group being studied, right, in our hypothesis. So let's set the group of people over 60 years old, right? Step number 5, we need to phrase the hypothesis. To phrase the hypothesis, we can do in either 3 ways, right? First, by using if-then formation. Second is if you want to test for correlation effect, and the last one is by using comparison by two group or more than two groups, right? Let's look at the example. First example, if I'm using the phrase if then formation, if people over 60 years old consume an apple daily, then, so this is then, if then formation, they will visit the doctor less frequently. So the independent variable, we already know, consume apple daily is our independent variable, which is our cost, and the dependent variable is the frequency of doctor visit, right? This is the effect. So for the second example, for a correlation and effect, daily apple consumption by people over 60 years old will result in a decreased frequency of doctor visit. So this is the we rephrase our hypothesis for in terms of correlation and cause effect. For the comparison purpose, people over 60 years old who consume an apple daily visit the doctor less than people who do not consume apple daily, right? And the last step is we need to create a null hypothesis. So null hypothesis is the null hypothesis assume there are no effect between variables. So our null hypothesis will be daily apple consumption in over 60 years old will have no effect on the frequency of doctor visit. So this is how we formulate a hypothesis, right? So as for your exercise, remember the situation number 1 until number 4 that I given to you in the previous lecture. Please identify the variable of interest in the study and develop the hypothesis. So this is a situation number 1. Now you can pause the video and write down the situation, right? And this is situation number 2. You can pause the video and write down the statement. This is situation number 3, and this is situation number 4. Alright, let's continue on the next subtopic, which is a data collection method. So in data collection method, we will discuss basically 4 types of data collection method, which the first one is interview, the second one is observation, questionnaire, and experiment. Right, let's look at interview. Interview is a face-to-face interpersonal role situation in which one person, the interviewer, asks a question, a person being interviewed, and the respondent, which is the respondent lah. The question designed to obtain answer pertinent to the research problem, right? So each question that we ask, the interviewer asks to the respondent should be pertinent to the research problem. It is widely used as a systematic data collection techniques in organization research setting, right? So interview data collection method is most widely used in exploratory research study. Right, so it can take place during exploratory phase, during the course of research itself, during the analytic phase where it is used to help interpret data collection by other means. So the goal of interview data collection is to enhance precision and care. Right. So there are 2 types of interview data collection. First is structured interview, another one is unstructured interview. So let's look at unstructured interview. Unstructured interview does not have a proper planned sequence of question, right? But the objective is to bring some preliminary issue to the surface in order to identify factors that need further in-depth investigation. Means that you are doing exploratory research, so you don't have much information on the particular problem. So you do unstructured interview to dig on preliminary issues, right, into the surface to identify some factor that need to for further investigation. right? So let's look at an example. A manager is interested in solving a problem in work setting. So the type and nature of a question might be vary according to the job level and type of work, right? Top to middle manager, more direct question about their perception of the problem and the situation, right? For 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 lower bottoms labor labor, it might be some indirect question, right? So example, lower level employee, broad open-ended question about their job and work environment. This is the type of question that should be asked about at the lower level employees. For the supervisor, the question should be broad question relating to the department, employees under supervision, and the organizations, right? So the question example, right? For example, tell me something about your unit and department, and perhaps even organization as whole in terms of your work, employees, and whatever else you think is important. So this is some unstructured unstructured interview asked to management workers, right? For if you have received uninformative answer, you need to rephrase the question again. I would like to know something about your job. Please describe me in detail the thing that you do in your job on a typical day from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. So you need to do to use a funnel theory, means from a broad question to the narrow question, right? So another example, you need to sometimes if we don't have you not receive any much information that we are required, we need to do some follow-up question compared to others unit in this organization. What are the strengths and the weakness of your unit? So this is one of the example of the question. If you could have a problem solved in your unit, or a bottleneck elimination, or something attend to that block of your effectiveness, what would that be? So that is the some of the question that might help you to get some answer in the unstructured interviews. So the main point is we need to encourage respondent to talk, right? So the unstructured interview, the main point is we need to encourage respondent to talk about the question that being asked. Right. So now let's look at for unstructured interview for managerial position. What do you like about working here? So if you are not you will tell me which aspect of your job you like and which you do not. What would they be? So this is some of the question. Tell me something about the reward system in this place. If you are offered a similar job elsewhere, how willing would you be to take it and why? And this is some of the example lah. So now let's go for structured interviews, right? So a structured interviews is we have prepared a predetermined question, a list of predetermined question to be asked personally, either personally or by telephone or computer, means conference, video conference. Sometimes visual aids is useful for a marketing research for a structured interview. So this is some of the example of structured interview question. So basically we have a set of predetermined question. So the respondent would be asked by a predetermined question and follow up with the unstructured interview, unstructured question, for example. Or maybe there are no unstructured question. You just based on predetermined question. Now this is an example. Describe a situation which you were able to persuasion to successfully conceive someone to see things in your way. So this is all the type of example for structured interviews. So the interviewer will ask the respondent based on the list of question that they prepared based on the research problem, right? So the questioning techniques, right? There are basically we are using funneling techniques. Funneling techniques mean from the broad question to the narrow question, right? What are some of the feeling about the working for this an organization? So the question should be unbiased question. So the choice of word that we are choosing to ask the question should be very unbiased. Emphasize the tone should be very good tone, not throwing anger tone or try to provoke tones, voice. Inappropriate suggestion also not required, not appropriate lah when you ask a question. So for example, for unbiased question, biased question, boy, the work you do must be really boring. So this is the first leading answer, means that you're going to make the respondent to answer on the boring side, right? So this is a biased question. So the questioning techniques, first you need to clarify the issues and ask the respondent, and from the respondent answer, so then you need to uh, really dig on something on the based on the answer given by the respondent, right? So by in interview data collection, whatever answer given by the respondent, you should take notes and don't rely on the memory, because human memory will easy to forget, right? So nowadays we have a sound recorder, we can record the answer given by the respondent easily, right? So in conducting interview, we have basically what I can think is we have personal or face-to-face interviews, face-to-face techniques, right? Another way we have a telephone techniques. We can, if you can do, you can recall, there are some techniques have been used in call center or marketing research department. They are using telephone to call the respondent and interview respondent by telephone. And nowadays we have a video conferencing. This is quite convenient. And so personal or face-to-face interview, interviewer asks the question and record the response. The advantage is it can clarify the question, clear doubt, and add a new question instantly. Right? Read out non-verbal cues. Also can use a visual aids to clarify the points, right? So this is the advantage of doing a personal or face-to-face interview. And there are some disadvantage of doing personal or face-to-face interviews, such as a cost of the interviewer, right, might vary based on the wide geographic region covered, right? Interviewer needs to be trained, right? The can introduce interviewer bias actually, right? Respondents may be concerned about the confidentiality of the information given. So this is some of the issues of doing face-to-face or personal interviews. Right, let's look at an interview, telephone interview. Interviewer asks a question from the prepared question. This is basically a structured interview. Interviews are short in duration, means people are not in favor talking to you or talking to the interviewer in a longer period of time, right? The advantage is less costly, speedier than personal interviews, means that we don't need to go to the field to find a respondent. We just dial in through the phone and get the reach the respondent whatever geographic area that we wish into our research problem. So greater anonymity than personal interviews. The advantage is non-verbal cues cannot be read. Interviews will have to keep in short. Absolute telephone number could be contact. Unlisted one omit from the sample. Right. Respondent can terminate the interview anytime. So this is the risk of doing telephone interviews. Right. Now let's look at observation. Observation is the process of watching and listening to other person behavior over time without controlling or manipulating it. And we record the finding in ways that permit some degree of analytical interpretation. So it is a non-verbal and used when it is important to understand the dynamic behavior process in natural setting. Means that we want to look at what is the effect of a mice after we giving some drugs into their brain. So whether the mouse is dominant, what we call dormant, or they become more active. We need to do some that is an observation process, right? So the purpose of observation, when there is need to describe behavioral patterns, right? When the research phenomena cannot be investigated in a laboratory, when there is a need to describe ongoing behavior as it occurs, right? So type of observational methods, we have two types of observational method. First is participants observational methods. Another one is non-participant observational methods. The participant means the investigator is a part of natural setting, in which the observation is being made, but his role as a researcher is not known to the other participant. Means that they get involved in that situation, but the people around that situation is not known that he is the researcher. He just doing a observation in the nature setting. Non-participant means the investigator observe the behavior of the others in a natural setting, but it is not an actual participant in the behavior being examined lah. So means that they are just monitoring or observe from not in the setting area. Right. The limitation is to provide information on the current behavior. The observation is limited to provide information on the current behavior only. So it can be an important exploratory method, right? So when you do exploratory research, this is going to be an important exploratory data collection. Systematic observation can be useful supplement to other method, right? Observation may be a cheapest and most accurate method of collecting purely behavioral data, right? Sometimes the observation is only research alternative lah. So advantage of observation is focus on researcher attention on the behavior of individual rather than is simply on their verbal interview of or test taking behavior. It tends to force researcher to look at the whole person, whole organization, and the whole environment in an integrated way, right? So the disadvantage of observation is lack of control over environment, right? A possible extraneous contamination, difficult to quantify, as is a quantifiable method. Basically, most of a qualitative research are doing observation research. Observational data collection is suitable for a qualitative research lah. Usually restrict to a small sample, which make generalization is very difficult. May arouse objection and lack of cooperation from the subject due to lack of anonymity. Right. So this is some of the obstacle or disadvantage of doing a observation data collection. Now, I think for next we have survey research. For the survey research, I think we will continue on the next lecture. So for the next lecture, we will continue on survey research data collection and experimental research data collection. I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.